I get them all mixed up.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said that it's better to be a real model than a role model.
Ooh, Lord have mercy. That's real. It's better to be a real model than a role model. Dude.
Right. Because it's like some people, some of us play the role.
Mm-hmm.
And we play the wrong role.
Mm.
We play the role that has been scripted for us.
Yes.
Versus playing the real model that says, regardless of what society says I am, regardless of what my family says I am, this is what I chose to become, and this is what I chose not to become, and here's how I got here.
Mm.
And without sharing, you said it, man, without sharing that story, it's almost like that's like.
What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, and we got another episode of Black Fathers Now. And dig this, man, we got a brother, man. I feel like I say this all the time, but this really represents us as black men. I got an eclectic brother here today. I got the man, I got the homie, I got Mr. David Yancey. This brother is a husband. He's a father of 4, and he just mentioned he has one that's a senior that's headed to college next year. So maybe we can dive into the mindset surrounding that. But he's a husband, father of 4. He's a children's book author. He basically played college football at the highest level at the University of Tennessee, but he did that while earning a degree in nuclear engineering. Like, real talk, like the brother got a degree in nuclear engineering while playing SEC football. But on top of that, he's a musician. Right. So when I said eclectic, I wasn't lying. He ain't lying. The brother literally is an eclectic brother, man, but he's really a dope dude, man. He really has a story, and I had to have him come on and share with the Black Fathers Now family. So fellas and the ladies listening too, because y'all peek in, let's welcome my man, David Yancey. How you doing, brother?
Well, good, man. I appreciate the opportunity, man. And big shout out to you for everything you're doing with this platform, man. It's what the culture needs. So salute, man. Thank you.
Man, I appreciate that, brother. Coming from an eclectic brother like yourself, that means a lot. So I appreciate it, man. And so, before we get started, before we jump into your story, I'm a big proponent of the village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. But as grown folks, as men, we have a village around us because we can't do what we do without our team, without our village, without our family, without our support system. So before we jump into your story, I'd like to have you give a shout out to your village, man. Who are those folks that allow David Yancey to do his thing on a daily basis?
Man, I appreciate that, man. First and foremost, I always got to give praise to the Most High for just being the one that sees the path and allows me to tap into what direction to go in. So definitely gotta give props for props is due.
That's right.
My parents, for a lot of us growing up didn't have 2-parent households. Mm-hmm. I mean, so I'm grateful to be able to have that foundation, even to the point to where I know who my great grandfather is.
Ooh, that's deep.
That's a privilege. You know what I mean? I don't take that lightly. So that, man, and the foundation and the root that I grew up in as far as my teachings, spiritually, and socially, with the church I grew up in. And lastly, of course, man, my wife, man, and my kids, man, they keep me grounded. No matter how much I do project-wise, and whether it's engineering, music, or whatever, wife's like, yo, you need to take that trash out, homie.
Look, no matter how eclectic I am, I'm the trash man too. Dig that. I love it. No, that's so dope, man. Like, I mean, and it's funny because, again, when you give a shout out to your team, when you give a shout out to those on the front end, to me, it puts everything in perspective. It's funny, the episode, and we record this early and drop it later, but the episode that dropped, or the interview that I did prior to this one, was with a brother named Corda T, and he's a stunt motorcycle rider out of LA, and he's been in Bad Boys, and he's done all kind of stuff, man. Like you see him in videos with Usher, and everything that's on the West Coast is dealing with bikes. That's him, right? And one of the things he was talking about was he was also, liking the fact of doing the shout outs first, because he said, when you do a movie, or in the movies that he's been in, he said all the important people get their shouts out first. So you'll see directed by, produced by, and starring, but everybody else gets put at the end, but only the people who are super important get put up front. And it was profound for me, because I had never heard anybody put it like that. But then I thought about it. I was like, wow, in movies, they put the important people out front. And so to that point, when we're doing this show, it's about us putting those important people out front, because real talk, we would not be who we are without them. So
wow, that's dope.
That is.
I never looked at it that way, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And and it's interesting, when we mention like the, your roots or your background or your story, you mentioned that who your great grandfather is, right? Like that in itself, and again, talking about the Black male experience, that's a challenge that a lot of us have. You know what I'm saying? Like when I've done like ancestry.com and, you start doing your lineage, it's like you can go back about 2 or 3 generations sometimes, but once you get there, it becomes murky. You know what I'm saying? Because timeline wise, you start getting into that 1870 census. And prior to the 1870 census, we know what was going down in the United States of America, right? There was very little records unless they were slave records for people of African descent. And so like that history of being able to say, I know who my great-great-grandfather is a true blessing, man.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. It's huge. And it's something that's I almost took for granted growing up, because we would want to hear stories. So like my relationship with my grandfather, like I seen him every weekend, every single weekend. And It was like big family. My dad's the oldest of 11 kids. Wow. And all of them had a bunch of kids. And then it's like 13 grandsons, and we're all a year apart.
Wow.
So we would stay over my grandfather's and my grandmother's house every weekend. So I've got cousins where we grew up like brothers. So we would have conversations with granddad, and we would get upset because he didn't have enough stories about his granddad.
Wow.
But then I got older and realized like how selfish and of me to take that for granted, because I didn't have to do an ancestry.com to even know where that lineage was, but as I got older, of course I did one, and to try to see a bigger branch of the family, but you're right, just having that foundation. So when I became a father, I can teach my son his lineage, and I can tell him stories about, people he's never seen before. And it just helps, just firms a good identity of who you are.
Ooh, dude, that's so doggone powerful, man. It's just like, as you were talking about sitting at the foot of your grandfather and your grandfather telling you about his grandfather, it was like, that was, you had 4 generations there of accurate, vivid stories being told. And it takes me back to, I interviewed a brother about 1.5 years ago. His name is David Jai, and David's from Senegal, right? And he talked about growing up in Senegal, how he used to go to the village. And when he went to the village, you would meet like an elder, and the elder would call you over and say, who are you? And who is your father? And who was your grandfather? And he said you would sit there, and that elder would then tell you stories about what your great-grandfather and your great-great-grandfather meant to the village. And they would sit under the baobab tree and talk about, these stories. And so it's like send chills up my spine hearing you talk about that, and hearing that, and then thinking about how a brother that grew up in Senegal had that same connectivity or that same experience.
Man, no, you just resent them chills this way. I like to say I'm inclined to African roots and African history, right? But there's always this disconnect when you're trying to be educated about it especially in the physical sense of what you experience.
Yes.
So when you take the African American experience, you take the African experience, there's this big Atlantic Ocean that disconnects us. But then when you say stuff like that, it's the ocean, and I feel
you feel the connectivity, because the thing is that there are so many things that can't be taught that are just ingrained into us. You know what I'm saying? They're ingrained into our DNA. And it's kind of like, I'll tell you, like, I like food. Like, I'm kind of a foodie, right? And so when you look at various foods and you see the way various things are prepared in America and what we consider soul food, but then you go to the Caribbean and you see dishes in Jamaica and Barbados and in Curacao, you're like, that's kind of similar to the greens we had here. Or then you go to a Nigerian restaurant and you see like the potato leaf and the cassava leaf and this and you start like, hold up, there is something similar about all of this. And these are all folks who obviously originated from Africa, but had different cultural pathways to their current state. And it's pretty interesting that they might not have talked to each other, but the reality is there was this thing that was like this tie that binds, so to speak.
Right. Like you said, it's in your DNA. Quick story, maybe 30 seconds.
No, you're good, man.
My first time going to Nassau, Bahamas. It was a cruise, of course, but you know, you get 8 hours.
Yeah.
So my wife and I went with a lot of her family, and they wanted to take the tour bus.
Okay.
But we wanted the authentic nitty gritty. We got on the moped. Dangerous as hell. We went through the countryside to the quote unquote the hood, and we ran into this black owned restaurant that was right by the water, and you could smell what they have. It's like a seashell called conch.
Yeah, conch. Yep, conch fritters.
Right. Yeah. You can see the shells stacked up behind the restaurant. This stuff is fresh. So we ordered the menu, and the owner came and he took our order, grilled out everything. And I ordered a conch salad. And I'm telling you, man, when I tasted it, only difference was it had conch in it. But my sister used to make the same salad, and she would put shrimp in it.
Wow.
and it was just the cucumbers, the tomatoes cut up with some vinaigrette sauce and vinegar, and you cut up the shrimp and put it in it. It was the same thing, but they put conch in it. And I was like,
yeah, that DNA. Look, it's something about that, like the African experience, the African American experience. It's like the whole diasporan Pan-Africanist type perspective. It's like there is this DNA connection that we all share. And sometimes we try to find things that are different. But the reality is, where can we find those ties that bind? Where can we find those strands of connectivity and build upon that? Yes, we're not perfectly aligned on everything, but we can find something that, that salad was pretty doggone similar. You just use conch, you use shrimp, but there's something here that connects the dots.
Right. No, man, I think what's my man? Kendrick Lamar said it better. Which I got royalty and loyalty inside my
inside my DNA. I'm trying to tell you, man, it's deep. It's deep. And I mean, and thinking about DNA, it takes us to your origin story. And you gave us a little bit about kind of growing up with, a huge family and this big family nucleus, mom and dad and granddad telling stories about his grandfather. But talk to us a little bit more about, your origin story from the standpoint of growing up and like inspirations and all, because it's like I always like to get the backstory as to what leads to a brother becoming eclectic and doing all these things across the board to impact the world.
Gotcha. No, man. So I like to start with kind of the culture background of it. I grew up in one of the first Hebrew Israelite organizations created in America. By the founder, Prophet William S. Crowdy. And so we respected the Sabbath day. We were taught that we were the original Hebrew Israelites that the Bible speaks of here in America as through the Atlantic slave trade, and even ties back to biblical prophecies of Moses. So growing up in that type of culture, my dad was a farm boy. So he would, gut pigs,
Mm-hmm.
wake up early in the morning, start a fire for the whole house before he had to go to school, that type of lifestyle. So, I mean, 11 kids in a 2-bedroom house.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That type of like
Wow. Yeah.
grit.
Yeah, for sure.
So when he always promised himself when he got older, had his own kids, that they wouldn't work as hard as he did.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So he built himself up, man, and he didn't finish college, but he got an apprenticeship to the nuclear division of the shipyard to work on submarines as a marine machinist.
Mm.
So he's a mechanic by nature, organically.
Mm.
So growing up, he always told me that education, books, is where that's where the real success lies.
Mm.
So he always would be really heavy on me about schoolwork,
Mm-hmm.
But I was also, in the church, like I talked about before, participating in sports. I started playing football at 4. They changed my birth certificate. I can say it now. You had to be 5 before you could play flag football in the state of Virginia.
Uh-huh.
I didn't turn 5 until November.
Okay.
So they took my birth certificate, and back then, the typewriter, all you needed was a little whiteout.
That's it. Done deal. I love it.
They changed my birthday from November to June.
Uh-huh.
I could play flag football at 4 years old.
Okay.
And I didn't miss a season all the way through me finishing college.
Now, was it in Virginia? Was that the Tidewater area? Where you from?
Right, yep. Born in Portsmouth, but grew up in Norfolk, Virginia. So
okay.
7-5.
So you all like the Michael Vick and Marcus Vick and Allen Iverson and what you call them? Let me tell you, it was funny. I saw a documentary. I think it came up probably about 10 years ago, and it talked about the quarterbacks of Newport News. So they had back in the mid 90s, they had it was Allen Iverson and Aaron Brooks. They were in the same class. Then they fast forwarded to the class of 98, and they had Michael Vick and Ronald Curry. And so they basically showed the quarterbacks of Newport News and how growing up, Allen Iverson was the one with all the buzz because he was all American. Actually, it's funny. We're kind of deviating. We'll get back to your story in a second. But we at my mom's crib, I got the Street Smith from 1993 when Allen Iverson was a first team All-American as an athlete from football. Yep, I got that joint at my mom's crib in Augusta. It was from 1993. He got all the buzz. Doggone Aaron Brooks ended up playing NFL quarterback, whereas the other one was Ronald Curry was the one with all the buzz in the Tidewater area. Michael Vick was like second behind him. Michael Vick ended up, we all, know his story, doing his thing in the league. So,
right.
So you're from the 757. Okay.
It's a hotbed, man.
Yes.
And quick story about Allen Iverson.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing him play in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who he was because I was young.
Yeah.
But I remember the high top fade box, him catching a alley-oop from Tony Rutledge.
Mm-hmm.
And this is playoff time because my sister played high school basketball for Norcom High School in Portsmouth, Virginia. And then I also remember football time. He returned a kick for a touchdown, and then he got an interception, ran out of bounds, and slipped on the concrete.
Wow.
It's
like you remember those minute moments. Yeah.
But no, man, that area, man, is full of talent, man, full of talent. And it ties back into historically when you think about the slave trade in Jamestown.
Yes.
And how that was one of the first areas to where slaves came and were ported in. So it's a lot of rich history and ancestry that's rooted directly to Africa, right there in that area that really we're not even taught in school. And that's my biggest thing about the public school system in Virginia was not having that real cultural learning about Africa and its direct connection.
Absolutely.
But being able to grow up in the type of religion that I was a part of, I was able to get that understanding. And so I was at an early age, my dad he could easily tell me that I could become an engineer. He could easily tell me that, I made good grades in science and math. So he made the connection, was like, that's a part of who you are. That's a part of your identity. So to hear that at 8, 9 years old, like I already made up in my mind that I'm gonna be an engineer because my daddy told me I'm an engineer.
Wow.
Right.
I love that.
Right. So yeah. So that's really where the it started for me. Being able to be rooted in athletics, being able to be rooted in my science and math and schoolwork, and then of course my whole family sings. Everybody sings. It's a musical family. So like we had a group called Four of a Kind. It was a acapella quartet group. And I've got 3 generations of quartet groups in my family.
Wow.
Yep. So we would travel up and down the East Coast, man, doing gospel concerts on Sundays, all of that, man. So being able to take all of that in, when I got older and I graduated from college and I fell that short of going to the NFL, I had to tap back into my roots.
Wow. So you said, and then you mentioned, going to college and falling short of getting to the NFL. Talk to us about the process, because like I mentioned, and, for those listening to audio, they won't see it, but those that are watching the video of it, they'll see a helmet for the University of Tennessee sitting in your background here. So Portsmouth, Virginia, what I know about Virginia and that whole Tidewater area, that's a hotbed headed to Virginia Tech. But for some odd reason, you ended up at the University of Tennessee. Talk to us a little bit about that process, man.
Yeah. So Virginia's hotbed, and I'll tell you this, and I'll get into my story. There's way more talented guys who didn't make it.
Oh, absolutely. It's always the case.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, I'm vertically challenged, so I ain't no hooper or nothing. But you know the joke is the legends at the park. You know what I'm saying? That dude who was like the only reason he wasn't in the league because he couldn't never be academically eligible in high school, or literally, or he stayed in and out of jail or whatever. But he would run circles around all these jokers who made it to the league. That dude on the court in the park, he was that one. But he just never made it. So to your point, there's always more that don't make it that could have, that do.
Right. And I was fortunate to be one of those ones that was on the other end of that spectrum. So I wasn't heavily recruited in high school because there's so much talent, that one of the biggest schools that I was in communication with was East Carolina University. Everything else was like, other tiers like Furman. It was different like Division II schools. But already knowing that I wanted to major in engineering, that's where the University of Tennessee came in.
Okay.
And I wasn't a Tennessee ball fan. Only thing I remember about Tennessee was they beat Florida State in the championship. Because I was a Seminole. In Virginia, it was ACC all day.
That's right. Look, I graduated from Georgia Tech. So I'm from Augusta, Georgia. Grew up in, Augusta, but I went to Georgia Tech. So I'm ACC myself. I didn't play ball, but I understand the whole concept of the ACC connection for sure.
Right. So I was able, man, to just through the college application process, they had this common market deal to where if one of the schools didn't offer, like if Virginia didn't offer nuclear engineering, which they didn't at the time, so tech and all of that was out of the question for it. Tennessee did. So even though I was a resident of Virginia through common market, I could get in-state tuition.
Ooh, okay. That's interesting. Okay.
So with that in play, and then I got a partial academic scholarship, it just knocked the cost down. So that's the real reason I went to UT was for academics and being able to, get that low cost from mom and dad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Come on. Look, you got a kid going to college next year. I know you starting to count them costs now. You're like, look here, player.
I told her the other day, we Googling scholarships all week.
And there it is. Shoot, all week, until this thing is paid. We Googling scholarships day in, day out. It's like, hey, Amazon Alexa, new scholarship for today. Wake up.
Hey, that's a bad idea. Alexa can do it all.
Come on. Let her put her to work. Alexa.
Oh man, but I knew though. I knew because there was 2 options: University of Tennessee or FAMU.
Okay.
But FAMU was a Air Force scholarship stipend, fully paid. And it's gonna sound super superficial, but 2 things why I didn't choose FAMU. I wanted to play football, and I didn't want to cut my hair.
Oh, and because for the air, and you would have to do the Air Force as you go on to FAMU, so you'd have had to cut your hair. Gotcha.
Right.
Wow.
So I chose UT. And that was just the luck of the draw. And things worked out because I went to UT and I walked on. Wasn't recruited, none of that. No preferable walk on. I was telling my son the story the other day to kind of motivate him. It was 100 plus guys that walked on at University of Tennessee.
Wow.
That same year, only 12 made the team. I was one of the 12, and then only one got a full scholarship out of that 12, and I was blessed enough to be that one that was able to get a full scholarship after 2 years.
Wow.
So like, I went for school, but the passion on the inside was always like, I want to play ball. So I just.
You know what's cool though, man? It's just like when I hear again, tie back to your roots, but then because you're tied to your roots, there's this concept of purpose. You know what I'm saying? And so you early on, you saw that there was some gift in athletics. That's why they forged your birth certificate so you could play flag football, early. But, it was like music, it was athletics, but then your dad kept planting the seed of academics, but then also possibilities, right? The whole concept of, this is possible. Because one of the things, again, from the African-American male, from the black male perspective, is we don't always have, social proof of what's possible. Meaning we have to sometimes dig hard to find an example of this and an example of that. And, regardless of somebody's politics, that's one of the things I always highlight about, having President Obama is the fact that he gives us tangible proof of the possibilities. Because, growing up, we say, I want to be president. I want to be president. Your parents would oblige you. It's like, okay, yeah, baby. But when you leave the room, they saying, man, that fool better go to medical school. Because even when I was younger, I didn't know I would see or think I would see a black president. But the thing is, when you see that, then that gives you tangible proof or social proof of the possibilities. And so it was amazing that the talent was recognized, the gifts were recognized, and the lineage was connected there. But then your dad also did a great job of planting the seed of possibility inside of you, which then to me is like the icing on the cake, because everything else, the journey to UT, right? That was all, to me, like we talked about DNA earlier, that stuff was already inside of you. It was just like you staying out of the way and letting it play out.
No, man, that's a great perspective, brother. Wow. Yeah, because I owe a lot to my dad. And I get a chance to go around and speak to, I went to UT and they had an engineering summer program where I was able to be the keynote speaker there. I found myself in these rooms talking to the youth about my story. And one thing I always go back to is, if it wasn't for my dad, but I might have been in that. Long story short, out of 10 of my closest friends, relatives and everything, 3 of us went to college, 7 of us went to jail. And at that time, all I knew was dad was tough. Dad didn't want me to have fun. Dad didn't want me to hang out, But then when I got older, I look back on it and I was like, dang, dad knew how close I was to being a statistic. And I was that close from being a statistics. And so, you make a key point, man, about possibilities. That can be the biggest thing that some of the youth don't have that can separate them from being a UT scholar athlete from being somebody that spent some time in the penitentiary.
Dude, that's why it's so important. And so brothers, when you're listening to this, I hope you're paying attention. Yes, the brothers listening might not have played SEC football. They might not be nuclear engineers. They might not sing and write books and all of that, but you do something, right? And your something is valuable to somebody else. And that something could serve as that possibility, that social proof of the possibilities, right? So don't ever hide your story. Apologize for what you do, but never apologize for who you are, right? Put yourself out there in regards to being that light for somebody else to kind of forge their path behind. And I think that's important. And if more of us, again, our flaws and all, because I'm far from perfect. Like I messed up early. I'll probably mess up before I go to bed tonight. It is what it is. I claim it. You know what I mean?
Me too.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? We're imperfect. But to me, and it goes to the notion of CeeLo Green's album. He says CeeLo Green and his perfect imperfections, right? What's perfect about us are our imperfections, because that's what people can connect to. That's what they can latch on to. They can't latch on to some perfect looking, perfect this, perfect whatever dude, because they like, I can't attain that. But them twists and turns, them jagged edges, that's what they can grab onto. So fellas, in spite of your imperfections, put yourself out there, because you're serving as social proof for somebody coming behind you. So what are you being social proof of? Are you being the right example? Or are you being that example that you showing them that, yeah, you can get down with the get down, but like David gave the example of the 10, 3 out of 10 went one way, 7 out of 10 went the other. Are you 3 or are you 7? Dig that.
No, you make some great points there, man, because I forget who said it. I don't know if it's Nas or I get them all mixed up.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said that it's better to be a real model than a role model.
Ooh, Lord have mercy. That's real. It's better to be a real model than a role model. Dude.
Right. Because it's like some people, some of us play the role. And we play the wrong role. We play the role that has been scripted for us.
Yes.
Versus playing the real model that says, regardless of what society says I am, regardless of what my family says I am, this is what I chose to become, and this is what I chose not to become, and here's how I got here. And without sharing, you said it, man, without sharing that story, it's almost like that's like Harriet Tubman never telling people about how to get from the South to the North. Come on. If she would have never shared her story, so many people still would be stuck down there.
Oh, and you know, you even hear the other part to it was she would, and I don't know, I think somebody might have said this might not have been true, but I believe it is true, in which they asked her, you know, how many you brought, you know, out of slavery, and she said, I could have brought more if they knew that they were enslaved. Right. And so to that point, she shared her story. And I think that's a key point for us to be mindful of as well. Even by sharing your story, even by doing the right thing, even by serving as the light, there's no guarantee that everybody's going to follow that path or use that to make the right decisions. And I'll tell you, like back in the day when I was coaching youth football and all of that, I used to get frustrated when I would coach some young brothers. And I'm like, dude, all you got to do, I mean, some of them in middle school didn't have to grow anymore. Like they were already, you know, 6'3", 6'4" in like the 8th grade. I'm like, dude, all you got to do is stay out of jail and stay academically eligible. And you got a golden ticket in your pocket. That's it. That's all you got to do. Like you ain't got to grow no more. You ain't got to get no bigger. I'm serious. Like it was some of them that I was just like, dude, you literally are walking with a golden ticket in your back pocket. Stay out of jail and stay academically eligible. Right. But the reality was, you know, there were some that, you know, moved on and did their thing, but then there were a lot who didn't, right? And so to that point, we can't get discouraged when some don't after we have set the tone or are setting the example. And we can't get discouraged on the outcome of that, because our mission is to just set the tone and do our thing. And those that are going to follow are going to follow. So fellas, don't get discouraged if the outcomes of the people around you aren't necessarily what you want them to be, because truthfully, maybe your calling is just that one. You know, maybe you're supposed to just keep that one from making that left turn. And that maybe is your job on this earth. You know what I'm saying? So don't get discouraged. Just do the job. Do the work.
Man, brother, you remind me of what my mom used to tell me, man. And I did it the other day. I used to find my mom picking up random pennies from off the ground. I'm like, Mama, why are you picking up pennies? Like, I said it was a dime, a nickel, a quarter. Random pennies from, man. And she said, son, those pennies represent the souls that no one else wants.
Ooh, Lord have mercy. That's real.
And if you don't have the time to stop and pick up a penny, you'll never have the time to stop and save a soul. And brother, man, it's not about how many pennies you pick up. It's about, did you take the time
to pick up that one?
Pick up that one penny.
Dude, and can I tell you that's something that's convicting, because, you know, I find myself, you know, a challenge that I have is, you know, I'm very much a visionary thinker. Like I'm the person that can see 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. I see that. but at times that causes me to overlook the right now. You know what I'm saying? So I have to really be mindful. And so what you just said there spoke to me specifically, that I need to make sure I'm taking time to be in the moment, to be present, to pick up that penny. And yes, 10 years from now, I see it. I see the vision. I see the light. I see where we're going in the direction. But the reality is, don't overlook that penny right there that's sitting next to you. Because that, if I'm not willing to pick that one penny up, you know, I'm not willing to do the other work either.
That's right. No, man. We share that. I'm a visionary as well. And I think that's with the gift and the curse of being a visionary.
Yes. Yes.
You're always so futuristic in the picture and always adjusting it. But I've learned, man, just recently, the value and the importance of slowing down and kind of just being saturated in the moment.
I love it.
Because when you get a chance to be saturated in the moment, there's small visions that you allow yourself to see that help connect you to the bigger picture.
Come on. That's real.
Sometimes we won't get to the bigger picture because we're missing that small little puzzle piece that we get when we sit down and be saturated in the moment.
Dude, that small puzzle piece. See, it's just like, I love this conversation because it's like you're throwing one. It's just like, I feel the need to add to it. And then you feel the need to add to it. And the thing is, there's so much value there. You use the term puzzle piece, right? And, you know, when I speak, I utilize the whole concept that any and every one of us, all of us, are like a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle, right? When we think about our lives, right, we got some good stuff, we got some bad stuff, we got stuff we want to hide that we pray nobody finds out about, but then we got other stuff that we want to put out front. We want everybody to see this, right? But the reality is those are all pieces to this 500-piece puzzle. But the funny thing about a 500-piece puzzle is this. If I gave you one piece to a 500-piece puzzle, you couldn't tell me what that picture looks like altogether. But the reality is that 500-piece puzzle is also incomplete without every piece. So the good and the bad are needed, and they're all part of you. You can't define yourself by any one piece of that puzzle. But on the flip side, we cannot or should not let other people define us by one piece either. Because that one piece, you cannot define the whole puzzle by that one piece. So, yeah, it's when you start thinking about life and the complexity of who we are on that level, it's humbling because it lets you know that, yes, what you see is like, oh, man, that's dope. You're doing that. Yeah, that's dope. Yes, dope. That's dope. But then it's like, you ain't see last night. Man, it was not dope. I felt like a dope. You know what I'm saying? And so, but the thing is, those are all pieces to the puzzle, and I'm incomplete without acknowledging all of it. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, that's, dude.
Oh, man.
Dude. And so speaking about pieces to the puzzle, man, you know, you mentioned, you know, UT scholarship. So you earned a scholarship. So you went down there on a partial scholarship academically, walked onto the team, majoring in nuclear engineering. You were fortunate to work hard to end up getting to a place in which you earned a full scholarship. So you're majoring in nuclear engineering, playing SEC football on full scholarship, and you ended up graduating.
Right.
Wow. Tell me what's next, brother.
Man, and I'll tell you the biggest thing in that whole piece, man, that I always like to bring out, especially since we're talking about fathers. Me and my wife had our daughter our sophomore year in college.
Wow. Now, were y'all married then, or was this before you got married?
Yeah, this is before, you know, we get to that point.
Okay, got you. No, it's all good. Look, you just, hey, I didn't know if you said you grew up with a family of 11 and this. I like, maybe they got married at like 19.
Brother. That'd be a whole nother cup of tea for for marriage and relationship. That's a whole
different ball game.
And brother, hey, we made it through though.
There it is. That's what's up, man. So it's a sophomore year. Y'all had your first kid in sophomore year.
Yep, sophomore year, man. She was the campus baby. Now she's about to go to college.
Wow.
So going back to UT for a college visit, man, was like one of the greatest experiences, man, of being a dad. Because I knew, like, my mom died like a year after she was born. And I remember promising my mom on her deathbed that I was going to finish school because it was questionable. Had a lot going on.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So to be able to go back 17 years later with my daughter as a college graduate, her and her mom, her father and her mom, college graduates, and now she's back on that campus where it was possible that because she was in the world, we may not have finished.
Wow.
And that was like, nah, we handing the baton to you. We can make it. We know you can do it. It was a phenomenal moment, man, just to walk around campus with her during that time on that college visit.
Dude, that's powerful. I mean, and then the concept of, you know, you had the kid as a sophomore in college, you're playing football, you're doing your thing, young father, and then you said your mom passed away. So you were still in college when your mom passed away,
right?
As well. But you said you promised your mother that you were going to finish school.
Right.
Wow. Like, how, from a motivational perspective, is that something that really helped to push you through in the midst of it? Because again, being a young dad with a kid and a lady and all of that, playing football, majoring in nuclear engineering, dude, I could see this thing being like, yo, how do I handle it? You know?
Man, no, you're right. And that was the tough part, because she was my rock. You know what I mean? Dad was the one that was stern, like discipline. Mom was the come talk to me, son. You know what I mean? So I was able to call her while my daughter's screaming on the phone, and I got workouts at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I got a test the next day, but I can't study because I'm trying to figure out what this new dad thing looks like. Trying to be an honorable man, take care of my responsibility at 17. You know what I mean? And it's like, Mom, what do I do? So when she left, it was like, I owe it to you to let you know that your teaching and your love wasn't in vain.
Oh, Lord, that's deep.
So I had to. It was a struggle, you know what I mean? I want a straight A student. But that was the level of commitment. So when it was 12 o'clock at night and I just finished my last homework assignment, but I still had to study for the test the next day, that was the thought. That was like, dude, you might as well just study it, even if you fall asleep with this book in your face.
It's like, it's like when we think about like forces of motivation, or we think about what gets us in the zone, it's just like, you had that thing, you know, the relationship with your mother, the loss of your mother, and the motivation of that to push you through the hard times. And I always think about that for a lot of individuals, like, what is that thing that motivates you and pushes you to the next level? What is that thing that helps you to get in the zone when stuff gets tough? You know, what is that thing that allows you to kind of get in your lane so that, you know what, I'm going to push forward? And it sounded like at that point, that was that push that you needed to overcome a lot of the challenges that you were facing.
No, you're right, man. And you said it earlier. You said purpose. They instilled it in me at an early age. So at that point in time, and even to this day, that's what drives me. Is purpose. You know what I mean? Like, there's an assignment that I have while I'm here. I'm not here to measure it. I'm not here to measure it and say it's going to be this big and this grand and this great, or it's going to be this small and this minuscule. It's up to me to fulfill whatever it is.
Ooh, Lord, for real.
Because that's the call and that's the purpose. So that's what helps. That's that drive. That's that getting connected on the inside and say, what's that purpose? What's that purpose? Every time I wake up, what's the purpose? Why am I doing this? And I question myself that all the time. And then when I don't want to do something that I know I have to do, it's not, why am I doing this? Like, why am I not doing this?
There it is. Sometimes you don't ask why. A lot of times we got to ask why not. You know what I mean? That's real. Dude, that is, I mean, you know what though? I mean, we should all live purpose-driven lives, right? Because when we have purpose at the center, at the core of what we do, when stuff gets tough, it keeps us on track. It's like really understanding your why. Like, when you understand your why, you can effectively apply, right? Like, you can effectively apply anything when you understand that why, you understand that purpose, when you understand that it's bigger than you. You know what I'm saying? Like Dame Dash say, I'm hustling for my last name, not my first name. Like, when you start to understand that thing on a real level, it drives you and it helps you to push through it, because the reality is life throws all kind of curveballs. It throws all kind of twists and turns. And, you know, if you've not gone through challenges in life, I mean, get ready, because you're probably going to. I mean, at the time of this recording, all of us are in the midst of, COVID-19 and, dealing with the racial unrest and, all this stuff that's going on right now in society. And so to that point, you got to have a purpose or else you will get knocked off track and you'll stay off track.
That's it, man. And that even goes back to the question you asked about, like, after college, like from a young age, it was science and all this type of stuff, but it also was like, son, possibilities, son, you can make it to the NFL. You know what I mean? So like, that was a goal. And to graduate from college and then also get a message from the Tennessee Titans and Atlanta Falcons that says, we appreciate your interest. We value your film, but your resume wasn't long enough. So wow. which meant in NFL terms, I'm not going to invest this money into you when you didn't have the 1,000-yard career rushing or the 2,000-yard career rushing. That's proven. I know his body can take it. I'm going to go with somebody else, even though when I look at you on film, the little bit I do see, I'm impressed. I can't make that financial investment into you because I don't know if you're going to be durable enough for me to, make that contribution. So at the time, I didn't have the wisdom or the perspective to look at it that way. I just felt rejected.
Absolutely. Because think about this. It's like somebody says that you're talented enough, but you ain't got enough film, or your resume ain't long enough for us to make an investment. It's kind of, to me, it would be easier if they said like, we appreciate your interest, but from a talent perspective, you can't cut it. But no, they said your talent, your film looks good. You just ain't got the resume that we're looking for, but your film actually looks pretty doggone good. So it kind of gives you that notion of I'm good enough,
right?
But ... You know what I mean?
So I tried, man. I went to Chicago, to Rockford, Illinois. Played half the season in arena football. I'm a running back. Trying to play receiver and corner in arena.
Yeah, it's different. Totally different.
Ball game. It's a different ball game. Oh God, it's a different ball game. So that was an experience. And while I'm there, I get the phone call from the Tennessee Wildcats, which was, at that time a big tier Arena 1 team, and they called like, we're gonna give you a shot. Well, I ain't got no money. I'm way out of Rockford, Illinois. I couldn't get back to Nashville, and I felt like that may have been the opportunity to get looked at by the Titans. But I wasn't able to make it back, and they moved on.
Wow.
And then I wound up getting cut from Rockford, and then I come back home to Knoxville, and now I'm a nuclear engineering degree football player stacking books at a bookstore.
Wow. Nuclear engineering degree having ex-SEC scholarship football player that played professionally in the arena leagues in Illinois. Now I'm stacking books at the bookstore.
Yeah.
Wow. What happened next, brother?
Humbling experience, man. Looking back at it now, I understand what God was doing in my life. Then I was just hungry to be woken up spiritually. I knew it at that point in time, it was just like, all right, God, obviously you got something else for me. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Let me humble myself so I don't stay here.
Absolutely. Look, I ain't trying to stay stacking books. I got a degree in nuclear engineering. I ain't stacking books. Yeah.
Right. But man, looking back on it, man, he taught me so much valuable lessons in that bookstore. A couple of them. One in particular, we had to stack the books really, really, really high so we can get enough of them on a cart to take them to their shelf and put them up without them dropping, because that will help with our rate of how many books we can bring in. I realized that the first book, the second book, the third book are the most important. Because if they're off by a centimeter, it's going to mess up your stack. And it's going to fall over. And so he was teaching me at that point about the principles of what it means to be deeply and rooted in foundation of the fundamentals.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't plan your life back to the saturation. You can't plan your life to look at the big stack of books when you didn't pay attention to how well the first 2 or 3 books were stacked up.
Ooh, that's deep. Mm-hmm.
So you won't be able to move the dream. You won't be able to move the purpose. You won't be able to move the call without it falling apart if it's not put well together.
Structure.
So that's a lesson I got at the bookstore. The other one I got was, there was a young lady that worked at the bookstore with me. I'm short, and she came up to my shoulder. So you know she was short. but no one would help her put the books up. And she would have to stand on this ladder, and it felt bad to me. I'm like, man, if she fall, or she trying to put these stacks and climb the ladder and but I realized the importance of understanding what a strong woman looks like. And I also understand the importance of what it means to teach our young men about supporting our queens.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Because you can easily be a standby person and not say nothing. You can easily walk by and judge, but we have to teach our young kings to value a strong woman and support her in what she's doing. And that was a fundamental principle that I learned at the bookstore that I had to take home. And we still weren't married at the time. Yeah, we were shacking, and we was on baby number 2. So yeah, I had my son. She was pregnant with my son while I'm working at the bookstore.
Wow.
So God was just teaching me all of these things during that time that now when I look back on it, I'm like, I get it. I get it.
Foundational principles.
Right.
And you know what's interesting about that, man? It's like I agree. I believe that pretty much all the time in which things like that happen is all about teaching us a lesson. And if we're willing and open to learning that particular lesson, it's going to be, like you mentioned, that 3-book foundation that's going to set the framework for things to get stacked on top of it, but to be stacked on top of it and for us to be able to properly balance those things. Because without that stacking correctly, like you mentioned, you said if it's 1 centimeter off, that limits the amount of books that you can handle. Whereas if you can stack those things correctly in proper order, and you can support those that need help stacking theirs in proper order, then he can throw all kind of stuff on top of it, and that bad boy is gonna balance like no other thing can be balanced.
Right.
Dude,
right.
That's deep. Lord, I love it. And so you worked in a bookstore. Like what ended up happening after that? Like did you work there for a long time? Did something else pop? I mean, what was kind of the next stage?
Bookstore all summer. After the bookstore, 2 weeks of selling AT&T door to door. That wasn't for me. And then after that, I wound up working at UPS at night. Still trying to train to see if I can make it professionally in professional sports. And then I got a chance to become like a mentor/coach at Alcoa High School. So I did UPS at night, trained soon as I got off, then went to the school to be a mentor/coach. And then after school was over, came back home, took a nap, got some food, went back to the UPS to move boxes all night. That was all the way from August when school starts through the end of that year through December. And then I finally got a chance to become an engineer in Knoxville working for Bechtel Power.
Wow.
In January.
Wow. Preparation. And then the opportunity presented itself. And then finally you were able to work were you working as a nuclear engineer?
I was working on a nuclear project as a mechanical engineer.
Wow.
But I'm gonna tell you what happened during that 8-month period, well, really from that summer, from the bookstore all the way through the UPS and the teaching thing. I had to come to grips with, what if this is it? What if I don't get that engineering job? What if I don't make it in professional sports, am I just gonna fold? Is it like am I just gonna feel like there's no purpose in life?
Mm.
So I had to dig deep, and I'm gonna tell you, I've got notebooks around here, man, from when I was scribbling notes back then, and God was giving me a whole bunch of visions about developing youth programs, about books and philosophies and all of that type of stuff. To where now, brother, like my math is art program, it goes back to that's where I developed it way back then. I didn't know what it was going to be. The children's book that I just recently written, like it goes back to the bookstore. Like I went from stacking books to writing books. You know, so it was like it was a preparation phase of just what is your true purpose outside of what you think it is. And I had to come to a conclusion, and it feels like when I came to the conclusion, God seen I came to the conclusion, and that's when he opened the door and was like, all right, you ready.
Dude, check this out. I'm going to tell you what you just said there. You know, there's a philosophy that states that, you know, when you're in the valley, you know, it's not as bad as you think because the soil is rich when you're in the valley, right? And so what you were talking about, that time period that you were not working as an engineer, you were throwing boxes, you were mentoring, you're working at the bookstore. You said you were also getting these visions about possibilities of what the future looks like. What I'll say is, if you had had that perfect nuclear engineering job right out of the jump, you would have had no inspiration to have those visions of what the future looks like. So sometimes it takes us being in the valley because, again, that's where the soil is rich. That's where you're getting nourished. That's where you're thinking about, you know, when people talk about having their back against the wall, it's like, I got to fight my way out, or I got to find a way out of this, or, you know, I'm in a disappointing situation. I need to improve. I need to grow. I need to develop. That all happened because you were in an imperfect situation. Remember, CeeLo Green and his perfect imperfections. So David Yancey and his perfect imperfections, right? You know, that imperfect period allowed you to grow, and that allowed you to have the opportunity and the openness to those visions. Because think about it. Had you been making nuclear engineering money off the jump, you know, doing what you do, you'd be like, man, shoot, I'm good. Like, man, let me ride this wave for 25 years and we can retire on the lake somewhere. Keep it rolling.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right, man. And it's one of those things that you don't know it until you're out of it.
Woo, Lord have mercy, for sure. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I couldn't come to grips and say this is what it is while I was in it. It was just too much to deal with.
Yeah.
I just had to deal with it.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right, man. I don't know, man. I might have to write that down. You might just gave me the next title to my next book, man.
Come on, dude. That's what it is, man. That's what it look. That's what this thing is all about. Sharing is caring, brother. Sharing is caring. but it's real though, man. It's like I find that in my life, in a sense of, you know, when things are super comfortable, you know, you really don't have an incentive to iterate, to change, to grow, and to develop, right? You think about this, like with health, right? You don't change your eating habits until you go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, your blood pressure up, your blood sugar's up, you put on some weight. Like, brother, you're a couple years away from this and that. Then all of a sudden you get on a plan, you get in shape, you start doing that. But we literally, from a natural perspective, we tend to operate under the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So like, I'm cool, I'm gonna keep it rolling, right? And so we have to sometimes be jolted into that, you know, that period of being uncomfortable for us to be forced into making change. And I'm striving to be that person who makes changes, you know, without having to be forced into uncomfortable situations. Like, I want to be in a perpetual state of improvement. Like, how do I tweak it? You know, you think about the greats. Like, I was, listen, Tiger Woods. And you see Tiger Woods at one point, who was #1 ranked golfer in the world and all of that. He went and broke his swing down even more to become even better. You know what I'm saying? Like, you start looking at folks who are the best of the best. They try, like, I think I was listening, Steph Curry does that with his shot. You know, he's the best shooter the NBA's ever seen, but yet that joker still take all kind of shots every day trying to get better.
Right.
Like, that mindset, that spirit, that's what I want to have in my life. I want to be in a perpetual state of improvement and not have to be jolted into it by being uncomfortable and in a challenging circumstance.
No, man, you said a mouthful, man. It reminds me of when Paul says, I die daily.
That's it. You got to.
That's that I've got to kill off the inconsistencies. I have to kill off of the weeds and the stuff that's growing around me that's keeping me from properly growing. And I'm almost done with my book of aphorisms, but there's one aphorisms that I heard you say that I wrote down, and it was about boundaries and about comfort zones. And the boundaries of comfort zones, we normally see those boundaries as security fences to keep people out from our space.
I know where you're going.
But it's really a boundary that keeps us in.
I knew it. I'm with it.
It keeps us in, locked away from what we, and you said it, we have to get to a point to where instead of people violating our comfort zone, we have to learn to become habitual violators of our own. We have to force ourselves beyond the boundary, beyond the security, because that's how you grow your perimeter.
Dude, we need to learn how to violate our own perimeters, because that boundary doesn't keep people out. A lot of times it keeps us in. And some of that comes by those that we surround ourselves with in regards to inspiration. Like there was a quote that was floating around on social media from Nipsey Hussle. And Nipsey Hussle said, if you don't get inspired by your circle, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. I was just like, and so to your point, it makes me think literally about what you're talking about with boundaries. And, you know, we try to keep things out, but the reality is sometimes we're keeping us in, whereas we need to knock those boundaries down and roam. You know, like if you go, like my wife and I, we went on a safari back in 2016 to Tanzania, right? And one of the things that was so dope is you go and, you know, you go to a national park. And my mindset was, I thought a national park was this big fenced in area where all the animals were. But no, it was just like a little gate that you went in, but ain't nothing fenced in. Them elephants and everything else can roam as they please. And it was funny, the guy who was the guide was just like, yeah, you know, some of the villagers have to get things out of their village because the elephants or the baboons or whatever might roam into their village. So they got to kind of shoo them back into, you know, the area where the national park is. But the thing is, there are no boundaries. They're just free to roam. And so you're not confined. It's just, dude, I don't know where I was going with that, but it just made me think about lack of boundaries. Don't confine yourself. Let it go.
Let it go. I remember my dad, man, he was like the illustrator. Like everybody thinks their dad's the greatest. But a lot of people do. And I was 12 years old, and there was a bird's nest that's in our gutter. One day, there was a dead bird. By the gutter. He took the time to pull me aside and said, "Son, I'm gonna show you something. What do you think happened to this bird?" I was like, "It died." What do you mean what happened? Sitting on the ground, it's dead. What do you mean? And he's like, "It left the nest too early."
Ooh.
He said, "Son, it's you have to make sure you are ready to leave the nest so you can fly. But if you don't pay attention to the mama bird or to how she's moving and what she's doing, you'll fall flat on your face and you won't fly." And then he went further to say, but once you learn how to fly, just remember that birds of a feather flock together.
Oh, Lord.
So there's even more dimensions about how you fly, who you fly with, and where you're able to fly based on your environment once you get out of the nest. And he was, I mean, like just little nuggets like that, man. So we talk about boundaries, like, yeah, even once you get outside of those boundaries, it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah, no, for real. Who am I associating with? And I'm gonna tell you, fellas, I hope you're paying attention to what he dropped there, man. You know, my grandmother used to always tell me association leads to assimilation, right? It's the same concept. You lay down with dogs, get up with fleas. That's the negative side to it. But if you want to fly with eagles, you better find some eagles to fly with. You know what I mean? And so to that point, what David's talking about is so profound and is so relevant to us as men, as black fathers. If you want to be great fathers, stop taking advice from your knucklehead friend who ain't trying to be a good father. If you're trying to be a good husband, Stop taking advice from your homeboy Leon Phelps, the latest man. You know what I'm saying? You know, drinking his Cavassier and yes, Cavassier, I'll have a glass. Yes.
Right.
You know, like stop taking advice from that. Like literally, if you want to be a good husband, find a crew, find your group of eagles, your brothers who are wanting to be good husbands, and bond with them. That's who you got to fly with. Again, I mean, don't put anybody down, but just understand where it comes to trying to model yourself, to release, to connect the dots. Make sure you're connected with some eagles in those various segments. You want to be an entrepreneur? Guess what? You better find some doggone eagles who are doing business. Like David wrote a children's book. If he wants to be that man in the children's book industry, he needs to connect with brothers who are writing children's books, who are inspiring the masses, who are doing this. I mean, come on, we got to do that if we want to be the best. It ain't no shortcut. We got to connect ourselves with the best, learn from the best. If we can't connect with them, listen to their podcasts, read their books, watch their videos, go to their shows once we get out of COVID quarantine stuff. Go to this, figure out ways to connect with them. But at the end of the day, you got to associate with eagles if you want to fly like eagles. You can't be running around with them doggone pigeons, man.
No, and I'm telling you, that is directly connected to us being able to deliver ourselves from our circumstance.
That's it. I agree wholeheartedly.
We have to do that if we want to change our environment. If we want to change, if we want to have that if it's monetary, if it's materialistic, or if it's just idealistic, whatever it is we want to desire, we have to be able to connect with those associations to help us to be transformed. Like
that's right. That's it.
If you really want to transform, you got to be around those who can help, that can get you out of that where you are.
That want to be there. See, that's right. The other part. It's like that desire. Like you mentioned the word desire. That want to be, like that individual, that entity, that group that wants to be. We have to make sure we associate. That's the number one life hack. Change your environment. Like you might not be able to pick up and move somewhere, but change your environment by what you listen to, what you're watching, who you're talking to, who you're letting in, who you're associating with, who you're letting your kids play with, who your wife is, who she's hanging out with. I mean, you change all that environment if you really want to change your circumstance. And we got to be very mindful of that because, fellas, we have to live up to our full potential. It's not just us. It's the kids that are coming behind us. And like David was talking about, he knows his great-great-grandfather. We have to do things and operate like we're going to know, or our great-great-grandchildren are going to know about us. You know what I'm saying? It's that legacy that we're thinking about. We can't be thinking about this thing for, next week or the end of the COVID quarantine, or the end of 2020. No, we got to think about this. You know what concepts and principles are we putting in place for 2100 or for 2200 or for 2300? You know what I'm saying? Will your great grandkids know anything about the concepts and principles you laid down? Those things passed down. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, we got to put ourselves in them positions, man, because we got to do it. If we don't, ain't nobody coming to save us, man. No individual person. Again, we're not, salvation's different. I'm talking about on earth. You know what I'm saying? As far as like what we can do and what we're supposed to do, we have to be about that doggone business.
Right. Nah, brother, you said a mouthful. I ain't even gonna try to unpack it, man.
Well, check this out. So we don't have to unpack that, but unpack a little bit about what you got going on. I mentioned, you're a children's book author, but you also mentioned the program Math is Art, correct?
Right.
Yeah, man. So talk to us a little bit about your program. Talk to us a little bit about, your children's book and anything else you have going on. But then also let us know where, the brothers can find your stuff, where they can support you, where they can follow you and all that good stuff, man. You had a floor, man.
Gotcha. No, so Math is Art is a program that I started back in 2014. Like I said before, I had a chance to go around and do like junior achievement, and talk to different levels, whether it was middle school or high school, even some elementary. And one of my biggest complaints, or just things, the irritations in the engineering and energy industry is I keep hearing my white counterparts say there's not enough African Americans in the sciences and technology and in the STEM fields. And I just don't feel it to be true. But also I understand that there is there's a necessity to ensure that it doesn't become true.
Mm-hmm.
So in that thought, I began to search and ask questions from the students that I was involved with and ask them about math. And I started to hear disturbing answers like it's too hard, too difficult. And I would ask them what do they want to be, and very few would say they want to be engineers or scientists. So I felt the charge to, because trust me, if I can do engineering, they can do engineering too. And when I read the Bible and my going back to the roots, when my roots tell me that we are the children of Israel, and then I read the book of Daniel and I realize that the king Nebuchadnezzar chose Daniel and his group because they were children of Israel and they were specifically skilled in science. It says it in the word. So I'm like, no, that's not true. Who told you that lie that is too hard? And why are you buying the lie that is too hard? No, it takes discipline. And so I was charged to try to find a way to help them see the coolness or the art that's involved in the sciences and engineering. So I've developed the Math is Art program to number one, do tutoring. So I do math tutoring for algebra, and even teaching sixth graders algebra. So that way, by the time they get to eighth grade, it's easy. And also introducing artistic ways to teach mathematics. So one thing that I started was using the guitar and teaching them early physics concepts about tension, about wavelength, about string size and buoyancy, and helping them understand, even with playing the guitar, it's a way to learn about mathematical concepts. So just trying to incorporate different fun activities, making a beat and doing the tempo and understanding that a tempo is really a ratio. You know what I mean? So just kind of helping them broaden their perspective about mathematics using art. So that's what the program Math is Art is for. And from that was the inspiration to write the book. And that's to get to the next level of,
let me see,
The Adventures of King.
Oh, I love it. The Adventures of King. That is so dope. My red guitar? My red guitar. I love it.
So what it is I wanted to show, you see, he got the locks in his head.
I love it, brother.
So I wanted, so my Math is Art program is really geared towards 6th to 9th graders. But I wanted to find a way to beat the statistics of most of the prison institutions that they build prison institutions based off 3rd and 4th grade test scores. So in order to really beat that trend, we have to introduce, in my opinion, science and technology at an earlier age.
Absolutely.
So that's where the idea of the book comes from. It's a children's book where this character, King, goes through these different experiences and adventures of the science technology world. In this particular book, he kind of goes through like the scientific and the art and the leadership of what it means to be a guitar player. So just kind of the goal is to try to influence young African-American kids to, you know what I mean, to see engineering as a cool thing. And, you know, since I didn't make it to the NFL, I want little kids to think engineering is as great.
Absolutely.
As NFL or NBA, you know, or being the coolest rap star or beat maker and all of that. So it's just trying to find a way, man, to influence our youth to think differently about the science, technology, engineering, and math fields.
I love it. And so, and where's the book currently available, man?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. And I also have it on my website. But I'm gonna tell y'all now, Amazon has the market corner.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Playing Monopoly, you couldn't land nowhere.
They got, as far as like book publishing and all of that. Yeah, man, they got that thing cornered, man. And because you know the books that I have, everything's been published on Amazon as well. And so, but to that point, you know, Amazon has it cornered, and we got to create and we can utilize the platform, but we also got to figure out ways to sell them through your own website. So because there's a little challenge there. I mean, again, I like Amazon. I mean, it works well for me, but the thing is, when somebody buys your book from Amazon, they're Amazon customers, not your customers. So you don't have any direct connection with them. And so that's why we have to utilize social media, utilize our own platforms, utilize websites and things of that sort to have a direct connection with customers. Otherwise, you can't directly get to them. So Amazon's a juggernaut. They got that thing cornered,
Right.
But we got to find ways around it and use that ingenuity to make it happen.
That's the key, man. So if DLY2 is kind of the brand stamp, DLY and the number 2.
Is that DLY2.com?
Yep, DLY2.com.
Okay.
And even on Instagram, DLY2. On Facebook, DLY2 Music.
Okay.
And it really, the brand is really develop and lead yourself to whatever it is that your purpose, you think it may be.
Okay.
And this is really about promoting self-leadership. I think that's critical. That's the number one leadership that you can have, being able to self-lead yourself. And that's how you can lead others through your own experiences and being able to lead yourself. So, but yeah, man, the book is out now. I released the album last year called Life is Love.
Is that on DL2, DLY2 as well? Can they get the album there? Okay.
Yep. It's on the website, and of course, iTunes and all those other Spotify's and all those other platforms is there as well. So planning, man, to try to create some partnerships with some organizations. Continue to do like the guest speaking with the guitar. With my presentations, I mix playing guitar and singing along with doing motivational speaking. Call myself the motivational singer.
I love it. Dude, literally, Mark, that's it. I'm the motivational singer. Call it, man. Shoot, you might even, have you looked at the trademark on that? We might need to talk about that offline.
I can't say right now, if you hashtag it on Instagram, most of the stuff is me. So,
man, you better find, brother, you better go and find a way to trademark that thing, the motivational singer. I like that.
All right, man.
Yeah.
So that's just trying to find different avenues, man, to promote purpose, promote leadership, and also promote diversity in the STEM fields.
I love it, man. Promote purpose, promote leadership, and promote diversity into the STEM fields. And the thing is, you're basically promoting you because that's who you are. You're walking in purpose. You know what I'm saying? These seeds that were planted in you from the jump, that history that was connected to you from the jump, those gifts that were there, all of these things, the trials and adversity, that time in the valley where you were learning those foundational principles, this is all you. And the beauty of authenticity is you're able to walk in purpose and allow all these things just to shine. You're not having to create something that ain't you. And so, fellas, pay attention to that, man. What this brother's creating with David Yancey, DLY2.com, David Yancey, or you can follow him DLY2 on Instagram, and then on Facebook is DLY2 Music. And I'll have all of that in the show notes so y'all can connect with him. Y'all check his book out, man, The Adventures of King, My Red Guitar. And he has his what's the name of your album again?
Life is Love.
Life is Love. I mean, literally, when you follow the brother, when I say he's an eclectic brother, nuclear engineer, played SEC football, musician, author, father of 4, husband. I mean, all of that. Eclectic brother. He's doing it, but he's all doing it because of purpose. He understood what his purpose is, and he's walking in that purpose. And because he's walking in that purpose, we need to support brothers who are doing that. We got to make sure that the right brothers win and win big, because when they win big, we all win big because we're all about purpose. Brother, dude, before we get out of here, man, your journey, your unique story, your backstory, everything that you've done, how has it come full circle to impact you as a father, specifically a Black father?
Oh man, that's a great question. Loaded too. I would say the first thing that pops in my head is, and of course I always go back to biblical principles, man. It says that train up a child in a way that they should go.
Absolutely.
And it's that they part, not train up a child in a way that I think is best for them, but train them up in the way that they should go, which means I have to have a keen sense of discernment of what their purpose is. So that way I can help mold them into being able to connect with their own self-identity, with their own purpose, so they can begin to see the vision that God has for them. So like I was able to be able to tap into that for myself. And now as a father, full circle is like, oh, now how do I help my kids tap into their purpose, so they can see visions and they can naturally and organically present back to the world in which they took from it.
That's, dude, purpose, tapping into who you are, living on purpose. But then when you do so, that then comes full circle for your kids to see you walking in purpose, because your kids don't always do what they're told, but they almost always are going to replicate what they see. Back to what you were talking about with your father. You saw your dad planted seeds. Now you're able for your kids to see you and you're planting seeds. So going forward, you're setting the stage for them to create the model, walk in purpose, and plant seeds for generations to come. And so when your great-great-grandkids come along, you know, they're going to hear about DLY2 music, or they're going to hear about my great-great-grandfather, the author, the SEC football player, the nuclear engineer that set the foundation for us to do what we're doing. And so, brother, for that, I salute you, man.
Man, man. God bless you, man. For
God bless you too, brother.
This platform, man, and for pouring into me today. Man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go do something now.
No, look, look, I'm the same way, man. Look, this thing goes full. It goes back and forth, and that's the whole point of when brothers connect on this level. Black fathers who are doing their thing, who are walking in purpose, it energizes us. Like I feel like I'm energized, ready to rock and roll myself. You know what I'm saying? And that's what this thing is all about, man. You know, we're helping each other and we're pouring into each other. And fellas, y'all listening to this, I hope y'all go and do the same thing. That's what this thing is all about. And so, fellas, look, let's thank my man, David Yancey. Again, visit DLY2.com. You can check out his music, his book, The Adventures of King, currently available on Amazon. I have all the links in the show notes. On IG, follow at DLY2, and on Facebook is at DLY2music.com, at DLY2music. I'll have that in the show notes. Y'all make sure to support the brother. Make sure to connect. Let him know if you don't know about him already that you heard about him on Black Fathers Now. My man, thank you.
Thank you, man.
No doubt. Now, fellas, as always, make sure to follow Black Fathers Now on Instagram, Facebook, any place on social media. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast via Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Amazon Alexa, TuneIn, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe. On YouTube, you're going to catch the audio and the actual video of this conversation. So make sure to subscribe, share this thing out, because you're going to gain something from it. And make sure to reach out to my man, David Yancey, because the brother's doing some amazing stuff. Support him, lift him up. Shoot, reach out to him, because you know he's full of knowledge. He got all these philosophies and everything rolling. Look, holla at your boy, because he got some deep stuff, man. He's gonna have you ready to go jump out the window and make something happen, because I'm energized right now. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, man, but I appreciate y'all, man. And so until next time, fellas and ladies listening too, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holla at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holla at you. Peace.